Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's broadcast of Getting Volunteer Work Done the Smart Way with Ben Martin, that's me, of Online Community Results, and James Gray from Causeway. We want to thank you very much for joining us today, and we're going to get started with our webinar right now. So, James, if you would go ahead and advance the slides, let's go ahead and do a little bit of introduction for our presenters today. And since I've already got the mic, James, I think I'll go ahead and go first. But my name is Ben Martin, CAE. I'm the Chief Engagement Officer and also the Chief Bottle Washer and Janitor at Online Community Results. We're a niche consulting firm that helps associations and nonprofits use online communities and collaboration software to advance their missions and achieve ROI. As a little bit of background on myself, I have about 15 years of experience in the association market. I concluded my association career as the VP for Marketing and Communications at the Virginia Association of Realtors, where we had about 40,000 members, and we implemented an online community platform for them. Along the way, I went and joined a software development company that created its own online community software, and I served as a product manager for a little while and then transferred into a consultation and training role with that company. And Online Community Results has been in business for about 2.5 years. I went out on my own in January of 2013. And so I'm very happy to be with you guys today and looking forward to our conversation. James, why don't you go ahead and do a quick introduction of yourself as well.
All right, thank you very much, Ben. My name is James Gray. I am Director of our Web Services Department here at VTM Group. VTM is the company that builds, maintains, and supports a software platform called Causeway, which we're going to be taking a look at today. A little bit of background myself. Been in the associations realm for about 8 years, first in association management company realm, where I served in a number of capacities on a few different organizations through that AMC. And I've been with Causeway for about 3 years now, serving in a project and product management role, and also customer service and support.
Okay, great. Thanks for that introduction, James. If we can advance the slide, let's go ahead and set the scene for what we're going to be talking about today during this webinar. So I just, from my perspective, to add a little bit of color commentary to how we find ourselves here. First of all, I just want to mention that Causeway was a sponsor of our Online Community Software Selection Guide. This is the second annual software selection guide that we've published, and Causeway was very generous to support this project. And as a result of their participation in the guide, we're doing a series of webinars with all of the sponsors of the guide. And actually, Causeway here is the first one. If you want to download a copy of that guide, which outlines 7 of the leading options for associations and nonprofits as it relates to online communities and online collaboration software, if you just hit up onlinecommunityresults.com, you'll see a large ad right in the middle of the page where you can download that guide. Also, just to give my perspective on Causeway and kind of the unique selling proposition that they bring to the market, I was telling James as we were preparing for this conversation that I kind of view Causeway as the online community for people who don't think they need online communities, or the online community for associations who know their members aren't ready for online communities. And the reason I say that is that every association has volunteer bodies that need to advance a body of work. And to one extent or another, they are either capable or incapable, it seems, of moving certain projects forward. We all know that managing volunteers is a lot like herding cats. Volunteers have day jobs, they have other obligations outside of work, and we are asking them to provide to us some work. And in many cases, it's very hard to hold volunteers accountable and therefore keep those projects moving forward when we are herding cats. And in my view, Causeway is a really incredible tool that helps to keep volunteers on track. One of the big issues that I see with volunteers is that when an association implements a technology to try to keep them all connected and moving projects forward, oftentimes those technologies are viewed by the volunteers to be less than optimal, and so their adoption rate is actually quite low. but Causeway has a really unique set of tools that I think provides a much more reliable collaboration platform for volunteers. So in my view, Causeway is a very business-like online community. It's not so much about engaging your members and what you might think is that like fluffy engagement and maybe even like a social media type of platform. This is a very business-like, buttoned-up online collaboration platform. So just from my perspective, to give you a little bit of color commentary on where I think Causeway sits in the market, that's kind of what I would say. So during today's webinar, we're going to be covering the what of online collaboration, the why of online collaboration, and some helpful tips and tricks that you should keep in mind as you are working with your volunteers in their online collaboration platform, or anytime that you're managing volunteers in a virtual environment. So, James, I don't know if you have anything else that you want to add as some introductory remarks. Otherwise, we can go ahead and launch into the meat of our presentation.
No, that's a fantastic overview. Thank you. I love the phrase herding cats.
Yes.
That's what we see a lot of, and that was one of the original reasons why we went out to build and develop Causeways, that the associations that we worked with had that very problem. They had volunteers that wanted to participate and wanted to be engaged in committee work, but had disparate programs across a number of platforms, and it was hard to herd those cats. So that's a kind of a funny but a great term to use when talking about collaboration software, especially in relation to committee work, because that's really what it's for.
Gotcha. All right, so let's start off with some definitions so that we're all on the same page and that everybody has kind of a common understanding of what we're talking about when we are discussing online collaboration. So for those of us who may be new to it, or maybe for those of us who need a refresher, what exactly is a committee collaboration tool?
Yeah, fantastic question. One of the most important of the day. Group committee collaboration tools is a platform that offers a suite of functions for groups and committees to get their work done. And all of these functions within the platform work together in various ways, and we'll take a look at a few of those today. But it's a centralized platform that allows you to organize your groups and committees and give them those functions that they need to get their tasks done. So as an organization, you may order or task a group committee to get some sort of project done, and a collaboration platform helps with that, helps them stay on track and helps them get their work completed.
So you've got an interesting graphic here on the screen of the little stick figures moving the puzzle pieces up the ladder there, up the steps. And we talked yesterday about the analogy that you have for this diagram, and I'm wondering if you can elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So in committee work and associations, you have the people, and that's one of the most important things. You have to have volunteers to get work done. And you have the tasks that they have to perform, so moving things from point A to point B or working on a project to complete that task. But for this particular image, I like to think, or at least pose the question of, what's the collaboration tool in this little image and scenario? And for me, the way I like to think of it is the collaboration tool is the floor. It's good to have people, it's good to have the tasks that you have to complete, but it can't get done unless you provide your groups a platform on which to build or complete those tasks. So that's the analogy there. You have your things to do, you have your people to do it, but give them a platform in which to be successful.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting analogy. So like right now I have a customer who has 150 committees they're trying to administrate, and I would imagine for the bulk of people on the phone today, they would think that that's an ungodly number, and I certainly would agree with you. But one of the challenges that they face is because they have so many different committees and so many different work styles as a result of having all these thousands of people in committees, is that they're all using different platforms And so you could think of it as, you know, each group has its own floor, and it becomes really difficult for the staff to get their hands around how these different committees are operating, exactly what they're doing for that matter. And so, you know, imagine having 150 flavors of floors that that your committees are using. So I think that that's a really important analogy, and one that maybe we could chase a little bit, James. Like, in your experience with your customers, to what extent are they coming from this hodgepodge of different collaboration tools, and, you know, how many of them are trying to solve the pain, cure the pain of having just all of these different platforms that they're trying to manage or get their arms around?
A large portion of them are, especially some of the smaller associations that we work with that maybe have not had the ability to invest in other platforms throughout the life of the organization. So it is a problem that we've seen and that we're here to try to help solve. And then you might have some groups that you formed, and the groups on their own have gone out and used different tools, or maybe those volunteers have used various tools at their day jobs that they're bringing to use within their committee work that they volunteer in. So it's about giving a centralized platform that brings all of those functions, or as many of them as we can, into one space, so that every committee is working sort of on the same level, has the same set of functions. And from an administrative point of view, that's very important, and that as a person managing an association or organizing your committees, you have everything in one place, rather than maybe a document repository that one group is using over here, and maybe another mail program over there for another committee. It gives you a centralized location for all of your committees, something that's standard across all of your committees. That's also important for volunteers, so that if they do participate in more than one committee, they have the same set of features from committee to committee, so it's very easy for them to engage and participate.
Right. Yeah. One of my common experiences in managing volunteers was, you know, somebody, whether it's a staff person or the chair of the committee, creates an email list, and this is the principal way that stuff gets communicated, is by way of this email list. And one of the big problems with that is that we all know that our email lists are not static. So, you know, imagine having 40 members on a committee. At least one person in the course of the year is either going to change jobs, they're going to retire, you know, something's going to happen and that email address changes, or they're no longer on the committee, or maybe a new member gets added mid-year. That's been one of the huge issues that I faced as a volunteer administrator. And James, can you talk a little bit about, you know, how that can be managed in the context of a collaboration product like yours?
Yes, absolutely. So email is vital. It's kind of one of those things that everyone loves to hate to a degree. We all get too much email. But the reality is that it's still a very effective tool for you to communicate to your members, but also for your volunteers to communicate to each other. They may be, if you're a large organization, maybe nationwide or across the globe, separated by state, country, and they need a way to communicate. So email is very important when it comes to group and committee collaboration work. And in the case of Causeway, it's very important to have email accessible in an online, searchable, and archived format, so that, yes, everyone can interact with email through, we call them reflectors. In Causeway's case, you may be familiar with a term like listserv or distribution list. That it goes out to everyone's inbox, whether using Outlook or Gmail, whatever. But having those records online and searchable is very important from a volunteer's standpoint, so that if you are that new member, that new volunteer coming in maybe after a committee has been formed, it gives you a place to go and catch up on past discussions, get up to speed as what's going on within your group. It's also important from a history standpoint. Let's say you have a committee that is an event planning committee, and the event happens every year, and maybe you have different volunteers every year. You can keep a record of that email interactions between group members online, so that the committee from year to year can very easily go back and read through past discussions, see how things were done last year, learn from the previous group or the previous task that people were working on. So it's very important to have email for a group, but just as importantly, it's important to have it online and searchable. And it also makes it easier for people to engage or sometimes disengage, having it in this listserv or reflector format. And in Causeway's case, it's easy for people to subscribe or unsubscribe from mailing lists as they choose. So if they feel like they're not going to participate in a group anymore, it's very easy for them to remove themselves from a group, or it's very easy for them to join other committees that you've set up within your site. So it also helps lower that barrier of entry for people to participate within your group.
Yeah, I think what you said there at the end is the most critical component for me, which is the barrier to entry. And my experience is that we're still working with primarily working with a demographic that is very comfortable corresponding by email, but less comfortable logging into an account, remembering their username and password, visiting this online collaboration platform that exists on the web. So many of us are dealing with members who they just want to interact by email. They want to reply to the email and have it go directly into the collaboration software so that everybody else is familiarized with it. So James, I think what I'm hearing you say is that not only when I reply to messages within Causeway are they entered into a thread, but in addition to that, I can even create new conversations or new discussions simply by emailing that group's reflector address. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. So whatever the group is within your site, so for instance, if you're a board of directors, your address might be board@yourdomain.com. Everyone that's a part of that group or committee is subscribed to that list. So you're absolutely right in that a lot of people, in fact, most of our customers still like to interact with email through whatever email program they're using. So I use Outlook, for instance. As long as I send to that reflector address, everyone in my group will get a copy of the message, but it also gets cataloged and archived and threaded by subject within the platform itself. And that's where the archives and history are important for those new members, as I mentioned, coming in and reading through past discussions, because they wouldn't have a copy in their email like you would. Right. So it gives a sort of permanent record of group and committee communication.
Yep. And I think that's also real important for the attendees listening in today to keep in mind as well, is when communications to the committees are going out by way of email, and there's nobody in the middle kind of recording everything, then the history of what gets discussed gets lost, right? Like it just exists on all these other people's servers and in no central place. And especially for organizations that are dealing with rigorous approval processes, whether that means advancing a document through a certain process to have it approved as a new standard, or if you're even working in a higher order of approval, such as like an ANSI standard or an ISO standard, having that record is critical. Like in order to comply with those ISO standards or ANSI standards, you have to have some kind of an audit trail, right?
That's right. It's very true. Depending on what your standard is, and we do work with a number of organizations that go through that process, you have to have record of decisions that were made, of communication between group members, which you can have someone record in their Outlook or Gmail, but if that person were to ever leave, then that record goes with them. So again, it goes back to the importance of having it in an online history and archived format.
Great. So as we're moving on to our next section, James, it occurs to me I neglected to mention that as we're going through our content today, guys, if you're having any thoughts, any questions that you currently have, feel free to go ahead and enter those into the question widget in our GoToMeeting today. But in addition to that, I'd also want to encourage you to jot down any takeaways that you have. At the end of the presentation today, we're going to ask you to share what you've learned during this presentation. And for sharing your thoughts, we're going to give you an opportunity to win a book that was released last week called When Millennials Take Over by Maddie Grant and Jamie Notter, who are two thought leaders in the association industry. And so if you'll jot down your thoughts, and at the end of today's program, if you want to share some things that you've learned, you'll be entered into a drawing to win one of those books. So, James, why don't we move on to talking about tracking actions and tasks, decisions that are made. Can you help us get our minds around what a good online collaboration platform should have in the way of those types of features?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of in a similar vein as email, the general purpose of having an online collaboration platform gives you centralized record keeping and the ability to track and manage action items is an important piece of that puzzle. In Causeway, we have a system we call tasks, or our action item tracker. It allows you to assign tasks to individuals within your group or committee, and then usher those tasks through whatever process you might have to march towards completion. So as an example, let's say you have a committee that's responsible for planning your annual meeting. Well, you might have an entire committee area for that group. Gives them the various features that they need, document repository, email, as we mentioned, task tracking being one of those. And the importance of having a centralized and trackable task system is that it keeps your volunteers somewhat accountable for the work that you are asking them to perform, but also serves as a way to remind them of the work that they have to do. So you can assign a task to individuals. Everything is tied in with email, so they get a notice when a task is assigned to them. That's a very important thing. So we go back to email, kind of one of those things where we all get too much, but again, it's a very important way to communicate. So in the realm of task tracking, it's an important tool to use to let people know that things have been assigned to them, but also have some way to remind them of those tasks as well. So in Causeway, you can set automated reminders to go out to people. So if they have not marked their tasks as closed by a certain date, the system will kick off a message to them saying, hey James, don't forget you have this task that's due at this date and time, please do it. So if you have maybe weekly or monthly recurring meetings for your committee, it's a great way to remind people to get their tasks done before a meeting that you have coming up. I think we've all been to group and committee meetings where we show up and say, oh, yeah, that's right, I forgot I had action items that were assigned to me last meeting, and here I am now, I forgot, sorry. But the importance of having an online tool like this to help with that is that it keeps your groups accountable for the work they have to do, but also helps them march towards whatever goal that you have set out for them.
Yeah, this is, I think, the critical feature in herding the cats. Making sure that everybody knows what their accountabilities are, when they're due, and not just saying that, it's not just one and done. I don't just say, hey, James, do this by April 1st. What's great about your platform is that it actually will kick off reminders to say, yeah, it's not just, the initial request. If something doesn't get done and marked off the list, we're going to continue to nag you about it until it actually gets done.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Love that herding cats, and this is absolutely one of those things that helps alleviate that problem.
Absolutely. I think about in my own work, like right now I'm working on a project where time is of the essence. I've only got a couple of weeks to pull together this project, and my partner on the project have a lot of work to do. And it'd be great if I had Causeway for this project, because literally what I've done is I've set a recurring appointment every single day in my calendar to check back in with her to make sure that the project is moving along. And so, like, if I had Causeway, then I could kind of more or less set it and forget it. Yes, we have this task that needs to be completed before early April, and Causeway could kick off the announcements or the the notifications rather than me having to do it manually.
Yeah, Yeah, it's a good point. It goes back to one of the points you made early on about different groups maybe over time using a variety of tools. So yeah, you may have tasks that you set in your Outlook, for instance, for yourself or for other group members, but having it centralized and standardized across the board for all of your committees really helps with administration of those tasks from a management standpoint as well.
Right. So let's dive in a little bit deeper here. What are some of the best practices for tracking committee actions and projects, and how are people effectively using your tool to do that?
So the ability to sort, filter, and group tasks into categories, or in our platform we call them projects, is key for success within Causeway. You may end up with a very long list of action items. So the ability to see what is most relevant to you related to maybe a project you're working on is important to allow you to keep your site kind of simple and focus on what you have to do. But that being said, another key important thing is transparency, and that is important for group members to see what other people within their committee are doing as well. So being able to see other people's action items goes back to that accountability a little bit, and that it helps group members help each other stay on top of the work that they have to do. So transparency is key, keeping people accountable for the work they've been tasked to perform. I'd say it's also very important to be realistic when assigning tasks and action items to committee members. Because you have to remember that more often than not, these people are volunteers that have day jobs. And it is important to give them time to achieve the tasks that you set out for them. So I think just ensuring that what you assign to them is realistic, and the goals that you set out for your volunteers are realistic as well. Not only in terms of volume, but also in terms of the time frame that you set for your goals. So, if due dates pass or slip, that's okay. Just understand that these are volunteers getting the work done. And within the platform, there are reminders that say your task is past due. It gives you a little warning message on top of your page. This is sort of a gentle nudge to get your task done. But as an administrator, I think keeping in mind that your volunteers are really just that, volunteers for your organization, and keeping the tasks that you assign to them realistic is very important.
Definitely. And I love what you said about giving all the committee members visibility into the tasks that have been assigned out. And I think increasingly that's becoming more and more important, especially to, I think, maybe this new generation of volunteers that's coming up, where they're saying, look, yes, I'm going to give of my time, but I'm hoping that everybody else who's involved in this project is going to help carry this water as well. And I think folks just have higher expectations these days in terms of the transparency of these systems. I think a lot of folks coming up the line in our volunteer ranks are very familiar with things like, for example, Google Analytics, where they can see who's visiting their site, and they have a lot of visibility into what's happening on that website. And I think in the same way, the expectation now is that there's better visibility into the collective actions of the volunteer body that they're serving on. And I think there's just people expect to be able to see what's going on. And I think that's good because it helps to hold the others accountable for their work. And obviously that reflects back to the individual as well, where if they know that their tasks are visible to everyone else and their deadlines, then I think they're more inclined with a little bit of social pressure to keep on task.
Yeah, exactly. It gives some level of energy in that if you see what other people are doing within your group or committee, it shows you maybe as a new volunteer ways that you can also get involved. So if you see the level of participation that other people have, it can kind of energize you or new volunteers to also participate at the same level.
Definitely. Yeah, one of the central premises that we work from in our practice is this concept of activity begets activity. So in other words, if we can demonstrate that a certain thing, a certain activity is happening within our collaboration tool or within our community, then we're going to get more of that. And it all goes back to this famous sociological experiment that was conducted in the mid-20th century up in New York City. And it's called the 42nd Street Experiment. And if you Google it, you can read in more detail. But the Cliff's Notes version goes like this. And there was a group of researchers who pulled together some subjects in New York City. And they did 2 rounds of this experiment. And in the first round, they told one guy to go stand out on 42nd Street in Midtown Manhattan and stare up into the sky for 15 minutes. So this guy goes out there and he stares up into the sky for 15 minutes, and a couple of people stop by to ask him what he's looking at, and a couple of people stand there and look up into the sky with him. But for all intents and purposes, it's basically just a normal day on 42nd Street. And then they bring the guy back in, and they go to the rest of the group of subjects, and there's about 15 to 20 of them. And they tell the whole body of this group of subjects, go out onto 42nd Street and stare up into the sky for 15 minutes. So they go out into the street, they stare up into the sky, and literally within minutes, 42nd Street was just ground to a halt because these 15 people demonstrated a behavior. And because there was a crowd of people doing it, people thought, well, there must be something to whatever they're looking at. And so by the hundreds, people started looking up into the sky. And so the point of the story is that activity begets activity, and the behavior that we model or that we demonstrate is precisely the behavior that we're going to get. And if you have children, you know that this is exactly how you teach them at a young age. Is you model for them what you want them to do. And interestingly, in an online community, the way that you instruct and lead your committee members, community members, is very similar to the way that you would lead and instruct children. Not that I would ever say that directly to a group of volunteers.
That's a great point.
So James, kind of moving on here, what I think is interesting about your platform is that it brings all of these tool sets together into a centralized spot. And can you tell us a little bit about the advantages and the efficiencies that are gained by keeping all of these eggs in one basket, keeping all these features in one tool?
Right. So going back to the point we made early on about committees using a variety of tools, some maybe that are brought in by volunteers, some that you've started using as an organization over time, and some committees use, some committees don't. What we go for in Causeway is to try to centralize at a base level all those functionalities that groups and committees need to get that work done. I'm going to switch over to our live site here and talk a little bit about this. So there's no longer a need to have separate systems for a mailing list software, a separate system for projects or document management systems or a calendar or a voting tool. These are kind of the basic set of functionalities that a lot of groups and committees need to get that work done, that we've tried to bring into one place. And I use the term standardize across all your committees, and that those same set of functions are given to every committee that you create within your site. So that's helpful for administrators who are managing your association, managing your groups, to be familiar with the tools across all of your committees and have a centralized place to manage all of that content. But also from a volunteers or committee members standpoint, especially for those who volunteer or work in multiple committees, having the same set of tools standardized from group to group is helpful from a efficiency and participation standpoint as well. In Causeway, we have what we call our dashboard, and at a group level, so for instance, if you're part of a board of directors or event planning committee, your dashboard gives you a high-level overview of everything that's going on within this particular group or committee in terms of the work that's being done. And each of these boxes represents those main set of functions that I've talked about: document repository, email discussions, calendar, and a few others. The important thing here is to allow your group members, people that participate, to see what they want to see and hide away what they don't want to see. And the way that we achieve that is to give the ability for people to drag and drop these boxes around, and it will save your view for this particular committee. So if I was a member of the board of directors in this case, and documents and calendar and email discussions were the most important things for me, I could hide away other things. And this helps me stay focused on the things that are most important to me, and helps me stay engaged because I'm looking at the things that I want to see. Now, as an administrator, if you have a group or committee that doesn't need a tool, another thing that's very important is the ability to turn off things that people don't need. So if you don't need a news feed, or if your group doesn't need a group shared calendar, the ability to remove those for that group is just as important as providing them in some cases, and that you don't want to overwhelm your committee members or your volunteers, give them more things that they don't need. So the ability to hide things away essentially is very important as well. And as I mentioned before, centralized support for administrators. As the person managing your site or managing your organization, it gives you the ability to have all of your committee information, the work that they're working towards, the projects they're working on in one place. So as an administrator, it's very easy to jump from committee to committee to see what's going on, to manage those groups, to help your volunteers get that work done that you're asking them to get done.
Definitely. And from our point of view, I think your dashboard is one of our favorite features because I think it speaks to two of the pressures facing associations and volunteers. The first one is like the ability to personalize this page so that I as the committee member can focus on the things that are most important to me. So I can drag things that are critical up to the top, and I can hide stuff that I don't really care about. And I also love the capability that on a group-by-group basis we can turn off certain features, because we all know that we're increasingly distracted, and sometimes we open up a new page in our browser and we're like, okay, what was I looking for again? Or we pick up our phone and we're like, what was I looking at my phone for? So the ability to simplify that experience will help people stay focused, and that's what we love about your dashboard feature.
Yeah, absolutely. As you were talking, I was just clicking through some of the features, sort of a high-level overview of how you interact with these functions as a group. And so every group gets their own private area, if you will, within the system, and all those functions are specific to this particular group. And the dashboard is a roll-up view of all of that content. So the latest documents that have been posted or that the group are working on, tasks that are specific to you, and as I mentioned, if you have some things that are past due, it gives you a nice little red triangle alerting you that you have actions to perform. Upcoming meetings are shown, the latest email discussions that have happened, and so on. So the purpose of the dashboard is to give you that high-level overview of what's going on within your group.
That's great. So let's move on, James, in the time that we have remaining. Let's talk about what are some challenges that people have come to Causeway as they're looking for a solution to these challenges. And I would imagine that even within the Causeway family, you've learned over the years how to address certain challenges that your customers are facing. So tell us, like, what are some of the challenges in creating and coordinating this work for volunteers?
One of the first is just coordinating people to get online and get into a tool. That in itself is a challenge, and especially if you're an organization that's coming from using maybe a wide variety of tools across your committees, especially if your organization has been around for a very long time and using those tools for a while. The first challenge is really getting people engaged into a new tool. And the point is that we mentioned early on in this webinar, lowering the barrier of entry to participation. So allowing people to get into your system very easily, view what groups or committees might be available for them to join or participate in, making it easy for them to join, or conversely making it easy for them to leave if they no longer want to participate, is very important in a collaboration tool. You don't want to have too many clicks between the time someone logs in to the time that they either join or view or get into the committees that they participate in. So lowering that barrier of entry, getting people into your groups and committees and allowing them to participate as quickly and easily as you can is a very important step in engaging your committee volunteers. Another challenging aspect of committee work can be that administration of tools for the group. So I go back to the concept of having centralized support for these functions across all of your groups. So as an administrator, it's very important that you can manage all of this in one place. So across all of your groups, whether you have 2 committees or in your organization or those groups, as you mentioned, who might have over 100 committees. Being able to very easily manage those and see what's going on across the board can be a challenge. So having a tool that provides you that centralized place as an administrator to manage all the content within your site. And some of it is permissions-based. So as an administrator, you'll need to have access into certain areas of a collaboration tool that your average workgroup participant or committee participant may not have. So ensuring that there's a very robust administration, again, centralized in one place, will help with some of the challenges that you might have within managing or coordinating your groups and volunteers.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that, again, another reason that we love Causeway is that it's a very straightforward tool. It's not distracting. There aren't a whole lot of superfluous bells and whistles. As we mentioned earlier, you have the ability as an administrator to turn off certain features if that's deemed to be necessary. But you mentioned at the top of your remarks right here that getting people into the online tool is always a challenge, and that's absolutely our experience, is just getting volunteers over that initial hump of logging in and acclimating themselves to the system is probably the #1 barrier to engagement. So one of our tips is to make sure that you're providing training to your volunteers, whether ideally that comes in person, but we have also done some short, like 5 to 10 minute video tutorials that get people acclimated to using a platform. So that would be a tip for our listeners today. Moving on, James, what about reporting capabilities for the staff and administration? What kinds of things should we be looking for in an online collaboration platform in the way of reporting?
That's a great question. So knowing who's doing what is a very important thing, and having a web-based collaboration tool can help with that. So in the case of committee work, knowing who is uploading content at certain periods of time or who is emailing the group is important. So having reporting functions that shows you who are performing those actions is an important thing as an administrator to know. So you can gauge from your committees who is actively participating. So you can look at things like a document activity log, as we call it, which shows a history of who has uploaded documents or downloaded the document and how many times. An overall user activity log that shows details such as who's logging in at what point in time, who's accessing what work group. Gives you those metrics to understand how your volunteers are engaging or are participating. And if participation looks light, it helps you understand maybe why people are not participating because they're not accessing the content that you want them to access. Having user activity logs is very important. Going back to a point we made earlier on about transparency, also showing who else is involved within a committee is very important. So showing a list of subscribers or members of a committee in sort of a roster format is important as well. So as a new member, you can see who is participating, who other volunteers are within the organization in a very easy view. And for those who are responsible for managing the group, an easy way to manage those rosters. So if you're a chair or administrator within a group, give you the ability to add people to your group, to change various settings within your group. Various reports about participation within your group is key as well. So basically giving you as an administrator the information that you need to understand across the board what's going on within your organization. And at Causeway, we provide a wide variety of things, as I mentioned, everything from user activity logs to document activity logs, even things like outgoing email logs. So if you have a group email that's going out to everyone, you can have a very detailed report as to how email is being distributed. So if you have a member that says, hey, I'm not receiving email for some reason, you can look at an outgoing email log, and Causeway will tell you whether or not the message was successfully sent or if it even bounced. And if it bounced, it'll tell you why. So you can help that person troubleshoot why they aren't receiving group email. So again, kind of lowering that barrier of entry, of that barrier to participation, and helping people ensure that they're getting the messages that you're sending to them is important as well.
Gotcha. So we've got a few minutes remaining, just about a little over 10 minutes, and a couple of questions left for you here, James.
Sure.
I'm wondering if you can talk to us a little bit about how collaboration tools can help members and committee volunteers really up their engagement within their association.
Right. That goes back to making it very easy for people to view the available committees or groups that you have for them to join. Seeing what's going on at a high level across your organization is very important for new members to get engaged or help existing members stay engaged. So showing them the level of activity that's going on can help energize people and get them excited about participating, making it very easy for them to join. So very simple, click a button to join, then you're in the committee, you're subscribed to the list, that type of thing. Allowing users to see committees working together is another important thing. So your tool should give you the ability to share content between committees within your group. So in the case of Causeway, if you're a member of one group and you're working on a document or a project of some sort, you can share that content to any other committee or group within your site as a way to collaborate from group to group. So if you have a conference planning committee and a board of directors, the conference planning committee can share content to the board to get them up to date and give them reports as to what's going on in sort of an automated fashion. So it allows you to very easily move content or share content from place to place that keeps all members across your committees engaged and informed as to what's going on within your groups.
Very cool. And we've been talking a lot about making it easy for members to join committees and participate in committees, but does Causeway also support the idea that maybe my committee process is very rigorous, like getting onto the committee is an appointment that comes from the chair, and people shouldn't just be able to join or view committees? Does Causeway support the idea of having a private or a hidden group?
Oh, yes. Yeah, there are a couple different types of group you can set up. In that case, you can have what we call hidden groups, which is essentially invite only, that do not appear on the list of available groups for people to join. We can even have what we call restricted access groups, which do appear on the list of groups that people can join, but they must first request access. There's a button here that says request access, and that request, a notice is sent to the group administrator or group chairperson that is then responsible for moderating that request. So they can either approve or deny that person access into the group. So if you do have a process set around who can join your groups at what different periods of time, having what we call restricted access group can help with that process.
Gotcha. And do you guys also support an integration with a back office database like an AMS or a CRM, where if my committee memberships are maintained in an Avectra or a Personify or IMIS, is there a way to synchronize the committees online with that back office database?
So we have some integration with a few AMS platforms out there, Avectra being one, MemberClicks being one. We're working on MemberSuite at the moment that is related to user authentication. So where people can use the same set of credentials to get into Causeway as they do that AMS platform. So again, kind of lowers that barrier of entry, making it easy for people to get into your tool. It is on our roadmap for deeper committee integration. So if you do have those items managed in your AMS platform, Causeway will pull that into your system. Right now we've been focusing on user authentication for a wider variety of AMS platforms, but committee data pull is on our roadmap for the future.
Great. All right, well, we've got just a few minutes remaining here. I wanted to remind everybody who's listening today to, if you've been jotting down some takeaways, we'd like to encourage you to chat those into us so that we can see what your takeaways are. James and I have a couple to share with you, and maybe things that have really stuck out to us in the course of today's webinar. But just as a reminder, if you do chat in your takeaways, we'll enter you in a contest to take home that nice yellow book in the bottom left corner of your screen, When Millennials Take Over by Jamie Nodder and Maddie Grant. So James, what would you say is like the #1 takeaway that folks listening in today should keep in mind and take home with them as an outcome from this webinar?
Right. Well, I have a couple listed here, and I shall start with the second one. Providing your members and your volunteers tools that allows them to focus on the mission that you set forth for them, rather than the mechanics about how to go about achieving that mission or goal is very important. So giving them what they need to get their work done. That sort of feeds into the first one, working together and working smart. So giving tools to your members, to your volunteers, that allows them to work smart. A wise man once told me, work smart, not hard, and I tend to agree with that statement, and collaboration tools can really help with that. It allows your group members to work smart, to work efficiently, without too much of a barrier of entry, everything centralized in one place, and they can do it together. So they're all in the same platform across all of your groups. Everyone's familiar with the tools that you have. So working together and working smart is a big phrase, a big importance to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if I were to hone in on one key takeaway from this, is lowering the barriers to engagement. You know, anybody who's working with an online collaboration tool or an online community platform needs to always keep at the forefront, how do I make this as simple as possible for people to interact with? Because at the end of the day, if the tool isn't getting used, then I think you need to be prepared for the question, why are we spending money on this? If it's not being used and it's too difficult to use, I think then the powers that be are going to start asking, what's the return on this investment? So, you know, when I look at Causeway, one of the things I love about it is, first of all, it is simple and straightforward to use. As I mentioned earlier, there aren't a whole lot of extra bells and whistles that are kind of unnecessary or superfluous. It's a very focused tool, which I think in this day and age is critical. Giving people too many choices, too many options, just distracts them from the core purpose of what you're trying to accomplish. And you know, one of the critical things we do with our clients is make sure that they have a very clear, succinct, and focused vision for what they want from the collaboration tool or from their community, and get laser focused on that. And that means ignoring a lot of stuff, but sometimes means ignoring stuff, but keeping it focused at first, and then potentially growing it out to those other things is a better approach in our experience. So, James, what kind of feedback are we getting in the chat from other folks' takeaways? Yeah, so I see one question came in to clarify integration.
So the two that I mentioned that we have in place in terms of user authentication are Vectra and member clicks, which are kind of on the opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of AMS platforms. We're working on Member Suite right now, so I hope that answers that question. There's a comment about liking the idea of maintaining a centralized audit trail. This person says that it was meeting minutes and community discussions do a good job of it, but it would be awesome to have a single place to find record of on, offline discussions, action items, etc. Which is a very good point. I think we've made that point a couple times here, having that centralized place for recording groups do.
Mm-hmm. So in the couple of minutes that we've got remaining here, and thank you for those comments and questions, I think it's important to note for everybody listening in that you can actually get a free trial of Causeway if you head over to their site. It's causewaynow.com. Isn't that right, James? Causewaynow.com?
Yeah, that's right, causewaynow.com. You can just contact us. We are happy to basically let you kick the tires before you buy. That also serves as a great place for us to get feedback on our own tool, allowing people to check it out before they make any sort of commitment. So absolutely, just contact us through our website. I think you may have had my contact information as part of registering for this webinar as well. You can get a hold of me anytime.
Great, yeah. Yeah, we love that you guys offer a free trial, and we also feel that your price point is very approachable as well. So for those organizations where budget is an issue, and I think that's probably everybody on the call,
right.
You know, we think your price point is very approachable as well. So we like that about your tool.
Yeah.
So
I was just going to say, our philosophy. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll let you have your say, and then we have one closing question for you.
Sure. No, you know, related to costs, we come from a background of managing associations, and we're very aware every organization has budgetary constraints, and our philosophy has been that tools like this should not be a major line item on your organization's budget. So we do work with organizations of all sizes in terms of both user accounts and in all industries, but of all budget types as well. So it's our mission to really find something that works for you.
Definitely, and I think it's important also to note that you know, the creators of Causeway, they actually have grown out of an association management company. So you know, the association execs who work at those AMCs are using this tool, kicking the tires, giving feedback to James and his team, which I think is a really nice feedback loop, and they get a lot of it from their existing clients within the AMC business. So I think that's a cool little twist on the Causeway story. So James, just one final question to wrap us up. Tell us a little bit about the types of associations that are using Causeway, both in terms of size, industry. Are they primarily individual membership organizations or trade associations? Give us a flavor for who's using Causeway.
We have kind of a bit of both. We have organizations as small as 10 individuals using Causeway, and we have some organizations who have as many as 9,000 and 10,000 users in their Causeway site. So it really runs the gamut in terms of size and participation. Those smaller groups may just have one committee that they're managing in Causeway, and we have some of our larger clients that have 80 to 100 committees as well. So it works well for sizes of all types. We have groups in various industries. We do a lot of work with technology trade associations and standard settings organizations. We do some work with healthcare organizations. We have some professional societies that are individual-based memberships. And we have a few networking organizations that are local, individual-based membership organizations in the platform as well. So really sort of a wide variety of groups, organizations that use the tool. They all share the same general structure and pain points and needs in terms of needing something to centrally manage groups and committees. So regardless of what industry or what size your organization is, those are the type of things that you know, people usually come to us with those problems that we try to help them solve.
That's fantastic. All right. Well, thank you, James, so much for your time and your presentation today. We certainly appreciate it. And as my closing thought for everybody on the line here today, I just encourage you to give a good, strong look at Causeway. I think they have a very compelling tool set. I think they have a good handle on some of the social sciences behind online collaboration and community. And I think it's definitely in your best interest to give them a good, strong look if you're in the market for collaboration software. I think they're one of the best out there that we've seen. So again, James, thanks for your time. I'll let you have the last say, and then we'll wish everybody a good day.
All right. Well, thank you, Ben. I appreciate you helping organize this. I appreciate everybody's time today. Check us out, causewaynow.com. Give us a call, shoot us an email. I'd be happy to take a look at your organization and see how we can help out. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, James.
Thank you.